It's your boy Corn. I am here today, but don't worry about me. We got a special guest in here today, guys. Look, guys, I found this guy maybe 2 months ago on YouTube. I was looking up meditation process and stuff like that. Came across this video, came across a whole bunch of stuff, man. A lot of it. I'm going to let Mr. Hunter Salazar. Now, hopefully I said that right. Mr. Hunter Salazar, I'm going to let you explain to us just exactly what it is you do and what your channel is about.
So when I started my channel, my channel is just at Hunter Salazar. If you type it in, you can find it. I'll be the first result. But it started out, I felt like a very deep need to share my spiritual path, really for a few reasons. But one of them was I wanted to catalog it for myself. I wanted to share with people in case it could possibly help them. I never really considered myself as much of a teacher as somebody who's like, hey, you could try this out. But I don't really consider myself a teacher per se. And, later on, I found that a lot of people started finding me through YouTube, and I didn't expect a lot of people started wanting to contact me. I'm like, oh, okay, let's kind of build a little community around this. And that's how we started the Makeshift Tribe a while back. It's a Facebook group. If you just type in the Makeshift Tribe on spaces in between make and shift on Facebook, that'll be in one of the groups. So what I do as a person, it's been a long spiritual journey for me. I went from my path really started to get going is when I found Paramahansa Yogananda, and through Swami Kriyananda and the audiobooks and the books, of course, I was trying to find something that made sense, because I wasn't raised with any particular religion. My parents never really hated religion, but they never really taught me anything about it. And, early on, I was just like, everybody keeps on mentioning God, and my parents never talked. I'm talking about like 8 years old. So I was like, my parents never talked about God. I'm like, that probably means that they don't know. So I'm gonna go research myself. And I started going on the internet at 8 years old. And back then we had these huge monitors and like very basic internet dial-up and all that crap.
Yeah.
It was. But I found this website, and it had the definition for each religion. And there was, it was a pretty good definition for each religion. There's no way that site's still up. But I read them all, and I was like, Buddhism, ending suffering. That sounds pretty amazing. So I started out studying Buddhism. And then, I did that for a few years, and I fell off my path in high school really hard, went through some really, really traumatic and interesting experiences. But right around 20 or 19, I started to really try to seek answers again. And so that's when I found Paramahansa Yogananda through Swami Kriyananda, and it's a Hindu Swami. If you look up Yoga Nanda, then you spell that out, you'll be able to find him. So eventually, working with Kali Ma, the introduction to Kali Ma was from Yogananda, working with Kali Ma, worshiping her, getting closer to her, and then started getting close to other gods. And then I discovered, I actually really feel something amazing connecting to various gods, different spirits, different entities. So my path started to expand. And then it wasn't until about 6 years ago, I think, that I really started to even entertain the idea of magic and the occult. My path from there was, I got into runic divination. I got into tarot. I'm really good at runic divination. But what my path became, because this isn't like a history of me, but what my path became was a pan-spiritual path, where I take from every tradition what works for me. I tried a bunch of stuff and see what works for me. What works for me, I make it a part of my path. I don't have like one person, I would say, that is my guru per se, or one particular path that I follow. I kind of make my own path. So I use pieces from different religions, different spiritual traditions. And granted, a lot of people say, you're practicing a number of different things, you should really respect the spirits and gods. It's like, yeah, when I'm working with them, I actually do have a great amount of respect for them. That doesn't mean that even the gods or spirits demand that I just focus on them. It's more human beings wanting a correlation to their own experience of just committing to one thing. So taking all these pieces from different religions, different spiritual practices, different traditions, and then I started to add magic into it and different ritual elements, whether it be left hand, right hand path. I don't really like the term left hand, right hand path. I like to call myself gray because I kind of meld the two. Now, granted, my role here is to, from lack of a better term, though this always sounds a little weird to people, is to push back Ragnarok for as long as possible. Now, when we think of the Norse, Odin, Thor, and Ragnarok, we think of the movies and the comics and things like that. But it's actually more of it's more like a multi-dimensional theory. So the multiverse, I do think of it as Yggdrasil, but there's a number of different dimensions, or there's so many different universes, as well as this in our own universe. And I kind of melded my Hindu understanding with that as well, because of the idea of different universes and all the intelligent life just in this one universe. So I very much view pushing back Ragnarok for as long as possible as all the universes that are stable. My tiny drop in the bucket, tiny drop in the ocean of my endeavors, is to preserve the multiverse for as long as possible. Now, I don't think that I'm somebody that's more special or more powerful than other people. But I still want to do my tiny part. Granted that there are billions of intelligent life forms in this universe alone. And, a lot of people hear me talking about this like, oh, that doesn't sound like spiritual or religious knowledge. But when you dig deep in some of these traditions, like Hinduism and even Norse religions or various sects, you start to find that, oh, there's this deeper multidimensional theory underneath. And so my overall goal is I'm an agent of order, but I actually have way more friends that are left-hand path, chaotic, Luciferian, Satanist, things like that. I get along with those people very well.
I was watching one of your videos called The Offering, and I was like, wow, it wasn't bad or anything, but I was looking at it, I was like, wow, you never would have expected anything like could you go kind of in depth with what was going on in that video?
Oh, for the Wall Rider project?
Yeah. Did that have anything to do with Odin, right?
No, it actually didn't. It was hold on. If you're talking about the offer, I think that was a video recently that wasn't part of the Wall Rider project. Because there's 2 offering videos recently. So there's one that was for Odin, there's one for the Wall Rider project. If you're talking about the one where I was in the middle of my forested backyard where I was offering something on a plate, I believe that was for Odin. So here's the thing with me. I make so many videos, it's hard to remember them all. But so I apologize. But so the thing is, for me, I'm actually a vegetarian. I've been not eating meat for 9 years, and then I was vegetarian for 7, then I was vegan for 2, and then now I kind of went back to vegetarian just because a few different changes in my life. I wouldn't say it's better or worse, but it's a really good way to cleanse your energy and to keep your consciousness focused and crisp. So one thing that I do it's a sacrifice of, I don't want to use this term, but I can't think of another one. It's a sacrifice of morals. So every now and then, maybe a few times a year, I might buy some meat and offer it. Now, usually, mostly my vegan, vegetarian thing is like not making that a part of my consciousness, because there's a lot of chemicals that I produce. There's a lot of consciousness attached to that meat. At the same time, I don't really like to buy meat. So I'm willing to make these little sacrifices and morals, and it makes that ritual that much more significant. And it's not necessarily that Odin wants meat. It's more of an action on my part showing my dedication. Did you want to know anything else about that offering, or was that?
Well, because there's another part where you said so I know you put like the pen on your face, right? For the this was the one that says it is a good time to make an offering to Odin.
Yes.
And that one, and then you put like the blood on your face, but you say you used your own blood. First of all, I want to say, isn't it crazy that we live in a day and age where we have to explain to people like, hey, I didn't use anyone else's blood for this. But I watched that video and I'm like, wow, like people would think that that in this day and age, it's actually pretty crazy to think that people would still do that. What went through your mindset the first time you had to actually give your own blood physically?
So I don't really like to. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. You're good.
All right, so I never really feel, there's not a lot of stuff that I do that I feel that I have to do, but I work it out in my head what makes sense for what I want to do. I mean, if I walked away from Odin and Kali-Ma, which would never happen, then I feel like I could do that. Kali-Ma is my first and foremost. So Kali-Ma, if anybody understands her truly, knows that she is a demon slayer. She wears the skulls of demons around her neck. She is a loving mother, but also a warrior goddess, untamed, vast, spatial, you could say, womb type being. She's so vast she encompasses multiple universes. But anyway, so I never use anything else's blood but my own. I think that it's way more powerful to use your own blood. So, I'm also a blood magician. So I use my own blood to create sigils and defense magic. I use my blood to make small offerings like the one you're talking about where I put blood on my face, my own blood. There's something about applying your own blood to your face that enlivens your consciousness. And if you have the paint on your face, it makes kind of like a mask. So you have this mask on and you're connected to the ritual through your very pores because it is on your face. And then, there's a lot of misunderstandings about blood magic. I don't deal with demons. I don't work with demons. I actually don't work with any forces that anybody who knows what they're talking about would consider negative or anything like that. But I would say, no, I would do some fucked up shit. But in fairness, it's always stuff that like is for the grander mission. So
what do you think would be the greatest like misconception of what it is that you do? Because you don't go by like traditional things, like you said, like you take certain things from different religions, which I really do like. Like that, I admire the fact that you do that and that you don't stick to just one or whatever. But like the fact that you do that, I think that a lot of people have a lot of questions once they realize that you do that. So what do you think is what's the biggest misconception that people get from when you tell them literally exactly what you do? Especially with blood magic.
I'm a very open person. Like if somebody asks me about anything that I'm wearing, I will tell you honestly. And like if anybody asks me what I do, I will tell you honestly. A lot of people that I know are kind of like hiding from criticism or whatever. But a part of my loyalty to the gods is I kind of just got to be honest. So one of the biggest misconceptions and the fear, there's so many different fears attached to it. It's like a whole course. But as far as like the misconceptions, I think that I work with a lot of beings that have a lot of death energy. Now, there's this misconception that death is evil. That is incorrect. Death is it's a transfer. It's a phase, and you can do it right or you can do it wrong, and you can speak to the dead, work with the dead. There's these beings that kind of in between that help with that. There's this huge misconception in the world that anything that has to do with death is evil because a lot of people are afraid of dying. And it's naturally human instinct to be like, oh, this is evil because it's associated with something I don't want to think about. And then they think that it's evil. So there's a lot of misconceptions attached to it based on a fear of dying. Even blood magic, based on a fear of dying, there's a lot of misconceptions. And, it's a lot of Hollywood and TV shows that kind of like blow any negative part out of proportion or create negative parts to these practices that get into people's heads like, oh, this is evil. But people love duality. People love to say it's either this or that. But if it's somewhere in between, I think that my practices are more towards, guess, quote unquote, good. I mean, I think more along the lines of order and preserving things. But people like to choose one or the other. So I think that where all the misconceptions are is people try to catalog based on their own fears, their own ignorance, or their own conceptions that other people have taught them. So that creates a lot of different problems.
So I went through, because again, I've been watching you for a couple months. So I've just been, going through like different kinds of videos that you've done over the past, at least over the past 3 years. And there was a video that I came across where you admitted to being a schizophrenic. And I wanted to know did that play a role in your process of finding yourself spiritually and actually going this route spiritually? Did that play any kind of significant role or any role in general?
Well, I think starting off, I'm not saying that you're saying this, but starting off, there is this thing where a lot of people think that schizophrenics are naturally more attuned, shamans are more attuned to other worlds and things like that. I've met enough other schizophrenics and of course I know myself, but I mean, I've met other schizophrenics to where it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily the case. I think that might be the case sometimes, but yeah, I think schizophrenia played a major role because I was very, very depressed my entire life, even when I was a small child. I mean, elementary school years and on, all the way through my 2021, I wasn't medicated properly. And naturally, I was just really, really depressed. And then eventually, I just literally couldn't sleep without meds. So when you're a depressed person, either you kind of fold in on yourself and you just increase the depression, which I kind of did anyway. But I was also the person that wanted to seek answers beyond my experience, beyond this kind of mental and just, and misunderstanding relationships kind of hell I was in. It gave me a motivation to seek answers in a way I wouldn't otherwise. And I guess you could say it made my mind a little bit more open to those answers. So that's why I didn't really have a lot of prejudices when I was looking for different paths or spiritual traditions. I was just like, hey, let's see what works. I don't really care what other people think because I never really got along with them anyway. So like, let me just see what works for me. I mean, my mind's open. I'm in hell. Maybe I can work out of hell. And then now, man, I'm content. I'm content in a way that I never imagined I would be. And another thing about blood magic before we go on is that, so there's a difference between cutting yourself for the pain or because of depression and doing tiny cuts, I'm not going to say how I do it because I don't really want to promote the information, but I will say, like, a blood magician knows how to get some blood without leaving something that causes a scar, and most of the time will heal within 3 to 4 days completely. You can't even see it. So there's a big difference between those two. But I think that schizophrenia did play into coaxing out of me that fear. And, I was facing my fear originally with blood magic because of fear of harm and things like that. But that was early on. Now it's completely developed past that. But anyway, I hope that answers your question at all.
Oh yeah. But also to touch back on, blood magic and everything else, like, are there certain, and I don't want this to sound like a stupid question, but it might be a stupid question. I'm sort of an idiot.
No, you're not.
But
Go ahead.
Is there like a ranking system when it comes to you? Because what exactly the more I watch your videos, I kind of get like, maybe just because I haven't like done more research than watching your videos, but what exactly is Odin to you? Like, is there a certain rank that you are under Odin in terms of your spirituality? Are there certain levels? Like, what exactly is there? And what's his relationship to you?
Odin is the one that has followed the path far more than anyone else like me, followers of Odin. So, he, don't get me wrong, he's got so many hundreds of names because he has all these different functions, but he had to gain those functions one at a time in ways that, this is how I can serve the multiverse, this way. Oh, I need this ability. So a god, now I wouldn't say that he started as a human being, but I will say that as a god, he very much started out just like we are. Odin is, I wouldn't say, I don't really consider myself, sometimes I say I'm a worshiper of Kali-Ma, but worship isn't the right word. It's more lover and respecter of that being and truster of that being. I'm more of that. And Odin is the god that I trust and I receive wisdom from. And I kind of leave some things in my life up to. Now, I'm a person who believes you shouldn't just leave everything up to spirits, gods, or God. I think that you should do the work yourself. You shouldn't expect everything to just be given to you. You should do the work. Now, that's exactly the path that Odin encourages us to do. Like, do the work, but here, I'll give you some hints. So anybody who works with Odin for at least a little while, they'll know if they really vibe with Odin or not. I vibe with Odin in a very big way. To me, he is a fatherly god that lets me take my punches, but is willing to give me the wisdom after those punches to both go beyond the hurt or to just negate the hurt altogether. So he's not the protector that Kali-Ma is. I just would consider him kind of a divine father, but a father that is not going to just protect you in every circumstance. You still gotta be sensible. But I would consider him a divine father and an inspiration for the path that I'm following for sure. The ranking system. That one's a hard one. I don't think I can answer that in a really good way. It would entail a lot of my suspicions rather than my knowledge. So I'll leave that one alone.
So I watched you interview. You sat down. You sat down with a witch not too long ago.
I know.
What? So what exactly is the difference between what you do and the witches? Like I know that there's still some spirituality, I guess similarities between the two, but do witches and I guess warlocks, right? Would tap into the dark the dark elements of spirituality rather than what it is that you do?
So I tap into the dark a little bit. That's why I'm gray, but I'm not like I'm actually more towards the side of order. Now there's so many different kinds of witches. So like a lot of people think that all witches are dark, but I actually know a lot of witches that are completely like as light side as you can imagine. Like they the rule, like whatever you throw into the universe comes back 3 times as hard to you. You know, that's the witch's rule of light witches, where like, you know, they don't want to put anything negative because they think they'll get it back 3 times as hard. Now I guess you know, there's a lot of different kinds of witches, but I guess the witches you're referring to, there are pretty dark witches, and I know some for sure. I think that it's not necessarily the title that makes us different. Or it's not even necessarily everything that we do. It's more what we're drawn to do and what our intentions are. So it's all about intentions and also what you're willing to do to other people, whether it be through magic or other means. Now, there's a lot of witches that seem dark, but in reality, they just try to help themselves and others. Even I've met a lot of demon workers that they want to help themselves and others. They don't want to attack people. So it's there's a lot of different kinds of energies, and I can't really speak on exactly what the difference would be with dark witches because that's really not my per se field. But I will say that, you know, I know witches I work with, even like Lucifer, that are actually good people. There's a lot of different understandings and conceptions that people have along their path that attune their frequency to the path and who they are, but not necessarily completely attune themselves to the being, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So it's completely a personal journey, and it's very hard for me to, you know, classify anybody as anything. But I will say that, yeah, there's a very big wide range of witches out there for sure.
So the burning of because you burn sage, you burn incense. What are some of the other things that you burn? Because it doesn't have to be a ritual for you to burn like sage and incense and stuff like that. You just do it just as like a therapeutic. Is it like a mental therapeutic thing? Is it spiritual? And what are some of the other things that you like burn to kind of get that vibe, kind of get that feel, and to tap into like another dimension?
I totally get you. Yeah, so I burn frankincense. It's funny because I burn frankincense and dragon's blood every day, but I actually use my last stick of dragon's blood. So the ones that I have are right here are 3 different tubes that I use every now and then. But frankincense and dragon's blood incense, I burn it right on my desk. And, you know, I have multiple, you know, places I burn incense around the house, but I burn incense right next to my computer on my desk, a frankincense or dragon's blood, usually frankincense, and I let the smoke just come to my face because I have it in a place where it can just like it wafts towards me. It's like eating a meal that uplifts you. Think of like a really refreshing salad that like it's like really healthy, and then afterwards, like, oh man, I feel good. That's kind of how frankincense and dragon's blood works with me in a spiritual way. So like I burn that all the time. I probably burn at least 3 or 4 sticks a night. But you know, while I'm here, I don't burn them when I'm at work. But yeah, so sage, yeah, white sage I love. A lot of people hate sage because it's very pungent. But white sage really, I don't know if it's because I'm 15% Native American or what, but I know that white sage for me, it feels like it completely gets rid of any negative energy or negative consciousness attached to me. So I burn it in a shell, and I wish I had a shell here, but I burn it in a shell, and then I'll just kind of either waft it with my hand or I'll waft it with a feather, and I'll kind of run it along my body. But sometimes I'll just light it and let it sit, and it kind of clears it. Good, interesting fact that white sage is a natural antibacterial. So it kills all bacteria in the air. That's been proven by science. But we'll make more and more discoveries like that for sure. But so another thing I like to burn is dragon's blood white sage. It's a white sage dipped in dragon's blood oil. That's very empowering. I feel more empowered when I burn that, in the sense that I feel like I have more strength within me to use or expend in various ways. So I'll just list a couple more things that I'd like to burn. So sometimes I burn or eat mugwort. That's only for digging up a lot of subconscious turmoil to deal with. Because when I burn mugwort, it's not necessarily a happy feeling or a therapeutic feeling. It's more like oh, this isn't what I wanted to deal with, and it's bringing up things within me. So Divine Blessings Incense, my favorite brand of incense is Him. And this Divine Blessings one is completely like just for air, love, compassion kind of energy. Very good to burn with goddesses that are very much loving, compassionate, things like that. And myrrh I burn when I'm kind of either thinking very deeply, or I'm working with the dead, or maybe both. But yeah, I think that's a good description of a few of the things that I burn anyway.
So myrrh is like a certain scent that you would need, or a certain kind of burn that you would need in order to tap into the element with dealing with death.
I wouldn't say that you need it, but I will say that it performs a function where, so like when you smell it, it also messes with your frequency in a way that brings you to where you're more receptive. So when you're more receptive, you can communicate with the dead better. So it's a very receptive herb. It's not an energizing like frankincense, but it really increases your receptiveness in a way.
I know everybody can like reach and talk to the dead in different ways, but just a wild question. Can you be stoned and do this at the same time?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't smoke weed, but I use other substances every now and then that help me open my mind for sure and deal with the dead. I don't use them. I deal with the dead way more often than I use anything to help me with it. But
yeah. Do you care to share any substances or?
Yeah, I can. So mushrooms. I can never afford the amount that I need for it to really work great. And pure MDMA. So pure MDMA is, usually ecstasy has a base of heroin or speed or mescaline, but pure MDMA is just the ecstasy part. It's a processed plant, and it's very shamanic for a lot of people. A lot of people use it for sex. They'll have sex for a long time. I used to use it for that, but honestly, now it does not inspire sex in me. It's more like I'm focused. I can speak clearly. I can focus on what I'm doing, and I have a better capacity to understand. Now, granted, it does heat your brain up, so do not use it very often. But because it does increase the thought process of your brain, especially for somebody like me that's schizophrenic. But yeah, so pure MDMA. That while I wouldn't recommend it, I will say that if you know what it does to you and it does a spiritual thing, I mean, that's completely viable. That's something that I would have no problem with other people doing. I would be careful though, because sometimes it does not interact very well with your system. So just anybody out there that wants to try it, be very, very, very careful.
And as we're winding down here, because I know you have to go here soon, but I do want to ask you, what is next because I want to have you back on here at some point, here in the future, but. I do have to ask you, what's next in terms of your spirituality, because you've gotten to this point, I don't know how many years ago, right? And so you've been elevating yourself as time is going on. I got two. It's a two-parter question. What's next for you? And if someone else who's curious about, maybe just about life, period, especially the reality that we all live in and everything that's happening here in America, period. How could you explain to them, like, hey, maybe this might be something for you?
So first of all, before I forget, I would like to say that anybody who is polite and wants to talk about spiritual matters or maybe things that could help them can contact me at www.facebook.com/Hunter_Salazar, HUNTER_SALAZAR. You can message me, friend me, what have you. I'm open to talking to all kinds of people, and I'm more than willing to help in any way that I can spiritually. So what's next for me? So I feel like the Wall Rider Project is very good for this time and place, because there's a lot of fear of death. And Haster, I wouldn't say that he's a god of madness energy. Now, a lot of people hear madness, they're like, oh, but we're learning how to focus it. We're learning how to actually use that madness energy, not necessarily just let it run free. You were trying to be able to channel that into something, which there's a whole bunch of things you have to know before, I guess, knowing how to initiate that. But the Wall Rider Project, we're actually going to have a group meeting tonight and probably do a video. So if anybody's interested in the Wall Rider Project, just type in Hunter Salazar Wall Rider Project, and Wall Rider is just spelled with one L. It's a project that has scared me more than any other project I've ever done, because I don't know where this is going more so than anything I've ever done, because we're trying to connect with Haster, and then in Carcosa, where he exists, either somewhere in this universe or in a different dimension. And then also we're creating the Wall Rider, which is a being that will help us communicate with Haster, but also we can put our madness energy into, and it can do things for us. But it's about focusing that madness energy. So that's what I'm doing right now. But also I just have always so many things going on. I'm doing a fire ritual tonight. I'm doing some offerings to God tonight. I of course sell patents. I don't know if I can I tell people about patents?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know if I could like advertise myself here.
Oh yeah, always, yeah.
Yeah. So I actually sell kits. And there's these things that I make called patents. So what I work into them is incense powder and grave dirt, and then I in a black ball with the black clay, of course, and then I make the yellow sign on top with the little yellow pieces of clay. And then what also is in a kit is a little easel and a little painting that has an eye on it that you can focus on during meditation. And then I have a yellow candle that I include that's just for the ritual overall, and a yellow cloth. And so all these things together, plus I write a new guided meditation for every kit that's different from every other kit. So I write a new guided meditation for connecting to Haster, Carcosa, and the Wall Rider for every kit. And so that I usually charge like $50 for that, and that includes that's no more for shipping if it's in the United States. But I've been sending out these kits, and people have been buying them and having a lot of success with connecting to Haster and the Wall Rider and Carcosa. So I've been making these patents, and the patents are basically it's not just for the Wall Rider project, but patents are a piece of clay you can pour offerings of liquid onto. You can put blood on. You can have as something that you carry around or just hold sometimes. It's kind of like a miniature altar that you can hold in your hand in a way. And this is the project that's the biggest thing right now. If anybody's interested, you can contact me on Facebook. But yeah, it's that's what's new for me right now, and also my shamanic path. I say shamanic, and people drives people crazy, but I'm from Texas, so shamanic sounds correct. But wait, what state are you in?
I'm originally from Virginia, but I live in Florida now.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, shamanic. Yeah. Let's go with that.
Shamanic.
But yeah, I don't like to put labels on paths anyway. Anyway, yeah, I've been making strides in that as well. So I got a lot of things going on. But yeah, just anybody who's interested, they can contact me, or just keep on watching the channel. And once again, I'm a very open person. As long as somebody's polite, I'll talk to you. Do you have any other questions?
No, I'm actually yeah. Well, look, I want to say thank you for coming on here, man, and thank you for taking the time out. I know you got some other stuff you got to be doing, but again, I'm very open with having you back on here sometime soon and have like a full sit down to explain all of this shit to me. But man, it's been great having you on here, and any information is better than none. Like the information you gave me tonight, half of it I didn't understand, but the other half I'm like, okay, I'm kind of intrigued at this point. Like I'm kind of, and again, even watching your videos, I'm still like interested in it because I always want to understand, like, why does he do it that way, or what is he doing now? What kind of ritual is this, and who is Odin, and all this other, like, it's amazing. All this stuff, I just love taking all of this information and watching the rituals and different stuff like that, because I've always been like a person that's an open-minded person. I've always been that kind of person where I'm like, oh wow, they're doing rituals, and most people will be like, rituals, whoa, whole shit. Like me, I'm kind of I want to know what it is. You know what I mean? So again, man. Hunter Salazar, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining me right here on Half-Ass Podcast. Hope to have you back again, man.
I'll be back whenever when our schedules kind of coincide. But yeah, I can.
But again, I am me. This is Hunter Salazar, and this is Half-Ass Pod, and we are OUT.